We're great. Look, I feel like a lot of people, I'm sure, if you're a Atlanta Hawk fan or if you're a Pace, the Pacers got a lot further than the Sixers have since the process. Oh my God, we got the process. We're winning so much. They've just won their 18th, and we're no closer to winning one than they are. So, congratulations to them. I'm happy for Brad Stevens. He did a really good job. He went into the front office. He kind of revamped the team, made the trade for Smart, brought Horford back, and was able to build a team with Holiday, and they can switch on everything. They play great defense, which is what you build championship teams around. And I think what he said after the game was the most compelling thing. I want players who are self-aware, and that means you're coachable. He wants players that his coach can make better. And I think the addition of Jeff Van Gundy really helped Joe Mazzulla, gave him a steadying force within the framework of the team, gave him somebody he could rely on, that mentorship that we all need in life, no matter how old we are, to get advice and counsel from somebody who's not, you're worried about taking their job. So credit them. They had a great offseason, and that great offseason ended up to the most wins in the regular season, which then ended up in winning a title. So hats off to them. They deserve it. We'll never get close to it. We're from here to Hawaii from ever getting there.
Yeah, we joke about it just because we're sad. It's not because we don't appreciate the greatness that was on display. And I agree with you there, especially for Boston. The difference in desperation was certainly there. The stars showed up for Boston right away. You think about a team that, for as many threes as we're accustomed to seeing them shoot and make, it's something in the series that hadn't been there fully. They shot 47.6% in the first half from three. They shut down Luka and Kyrie. And it was just one of those games where, for as lackluster as the series as a whole has felt, it's always cool and special to see the emotion of the team that wins. And especially when you do think about how this group of stars were perceived, and that you need to break up Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown if you're going to win a championship, and that, maybe this isn't the right group to come together. Maybe they can't do it. The fact that they could and silence the critics and silence the noise, I think, was important. And Jaylen Brown, as well as Jason Tatum, but Jaylen Brown spoke about that after the game. Here's him.
We've been through a lot. We've been playing together for 7 years now. We've been through a lot, the losses, the expectations, the media, have said all different types of things. We can't play together. We were never going to win. We heard it all, but we just blocked it out, and we just kept going. I trusted him. He trusted me, and we did it together. So, to get to this point, and share that experience with JT is just awesome. I can't, it's just amazing, and it feels great.
And he said that on the podium as well when he got the MVP trophy for NBA Finals MVP. He said, I share this with my partner in crime, Jason Tatum, but it is Brown who cashes that ticket for NBA Finals MVP.
Yeah, and they didn't go through the process, and they picked two guys in the top three that made a difference, right? So in 2016, they picked Jaylen Brown, the third pick overall. And
looks like we have some technical difficulties there with Michael. Hopefully we can grab him back in just a moment. But just to go back to the odds perspective of Jaylen Brown ultimately winning NBA Finals MVP, you could tell Tatum was trying for it there late in the game. And obviously the stat line in Game 5 spoke for itself. But he's the first player to lead an NBA championship in playoff scoring, rebounds, and assists to not win the Finals MVP honor since the award has existed. Jaylen Brown was going into the game an odds-on over -200 favorite, but right before the honor was ultimately given, he was getting about +200 on that price. Michael, do we have you back? You good?
Yeah, we're back.
There we go.
Yeah, I guess I was giving so much praise to Boston, they shut me off. Look, they drafted well too, Stormy. They had the third pick in the draft, they take Jaylen Brown. They had the third pick, they had the first pick in the draft, they traded to the 76ers, they pick Fultz, they pick Tatum. Those two players have made the difference. And then the great trade with Derek White at the trading deadline 2 years ago. And then this year they pick up Drew Holiday. They bring back Al Horford, who they didn't want to pay during the salary cap, and let the 76ers pay him, and they get him on a reduced deal. So credit to them. Really, it's been a nice job by and I got to say this, Danny Ainge deserves a ton of credit because Ainge is the one who picked Brown, and Ainge is the one who picked Tatum.
And the Celtics sitting right now at DraftKings Sportsbook plus 290, the shortest shot by far to repeat as champions in 2025. That's a low number. You have to think they were 4-1 favorites ultimately last year and go on to win it all. That's not something you see every day either. After the Celtics, it's the Nuggets at 8-1, the Thunder at plus 850, the Minnesota Timberwolves at 9-1. The Bucks at plus 950 and those Dallas Mavericks, followed by your 76ers at 10-1 and 14-1 respectively. Also for Joe Mazzulla in his second season at age 35, the youngest coach since Bill Russell in 1969 to lead a team to a title. I was laughing at his postgame, though. He's got surgery on his meniscus coming up. Him and Kristaps Porzingis both having surgery upcoming, but apparently he tore his meniscus in March and has been coaching hurt.
Good for him.
So,
I mean,
fact.
give him credit too. He was willing to take Jeff Van Gundy in as an assistant, listen to him, let him into the building, saved him. Jeff Van Gundy's quoted as saying, "Brad Stevens and Joe Mazzulla really saved me. There was a lot of things going on in my life. I got fired from ESPN. My brother's wife committed suicide. My best friend from Houston passed away. My sister-in-law died. It was a horrible year for Jeff Van Gundy, but by helping out the Celtics, he's really been rewarded, and now he's going to go on and help Ty Lue out the Clippers. So give Mazzulla credit, and I think it's made him a better coach. I think he's really listened and embraced it, which is what, again, it goes back to not being self-aware. What do you need to become great? What do you need to improve yourself? And I think Van Gundy did exactly that for Mazzulla, and I think that's what Brad Stevens wants with most of the players on his team.
106-88 the final. Boston wins and easily covers the 6.5. Total stays under again for a fifth straight game. And feel like
cashed.
And we cashed our tickets on the Lombardi Line. That's what I'm talking about. Now we'll see if we can do that again. We got to see. We can't pat ourselves in the back for too long because we got to move on to tonight and see if we can do it again with the Florida Panthers. So the Boston's win and cover in Game 5. Can the Florida Panthers rebound in the same fashion? Because they got dogged. Edmonton won Game 4 in Edmonton, 8-1. Bobrovsky gets pulled after he allows 5 goals. We got to see if he can bounce back. And I think that was a fun game for Edmonton to exercise some demons, but now they get brought back to reality a little bit. Florida has been bet up from -135 to -148. And remember yesterday on the show, Michael, when I was laying out all of the bounce back spots for the Boston Celtics with the losses that they had previously in the postseason. I'm going to do that here for you quickly for Sergei Bobrovsky, because while everybody is wondering, did the Oilers get in his head? Nobody gets in this guy's head. Every step of the way this postseason, he's had one bad game in every round. Round 1, Game 4 against the Lightning, he gave up 6. Round 2, opening game against the Bruins, gave up 4 goals. Conference final against the Rangers, Game 3 allowed 5. Saturday night, Game 4 against the Oilers, lets 5 by. All 4 of those previous instances were losses. What happened in the previous 3? The Panthers bounced back the next game, outscoring their opponents 15-4 in that following game. Sasha Barkov said after the game, you either win or you learn. I think this team has learned from all of their bad games this postseason and will bounce back and win their first Stanley Cup in franchise history tonight.
I love it. And look, I think what you're saying is so true. There is a reversion to the norm, right? It's what we said about the Celtics. I mean, Mavericks won the game convincingly in Game 4, but Dallas isn't going to shoot 26% again. They're not going to shoot that badly. Boston's not going to shoot that bad again. So for me, I think you have to play though. That's the one thing about statistics in certain sports where it's consistent, right? Mm-hmm. You can usually see a team that shoots 46% are going to shoot. Eventually, they're going to get to their norm.
Total in the game sitting 5.5. If you like the Panthers on the puck line, it's a +180 price, regulation around +115, +120. Last 2 minutes here of this opening segment, Michael. Got to do like we always do on the program. Yeah. What's on Michael's mind? What's going through the dome today?
Well, today's kind of I was thinking about Boston winning, and then, there was a time in Major League Baseball where franchises, and this is going to be shocking to most people, but the Oakland A's couldn't draw anybody, and they had a great roster. They had Rolly Fingers, Vida Blue, who was a sensation, Joe Rudy, who was a good player, and their owner, because they weren't drawing fans, shocking, decided he was going to sell those players off. And so he sold Fingers and Rudy for $1 million, and Vida Blue, the left-handed pitcher, for $1.5 million. And what happened is Bowie Kuhn, who was then the commissioner of baseball, stepped in and said, no, you're not allowed to trade players for money. And that saved it, really. It saved some of these franchises. And I think it transcended it over to football, and it transcended to basketball, because there was a time where owners were selling players to get more value, to get some cash out of the business because they weren't making as much money. It was an historic event. And, of course, Charlie Finley sued the league and went crazy. But I think it was important for the good and quality of the game. So as Boston was celebrating, there was a time where the Red Sox and the Yankees were trying to buy titles. And I think in light of NIL, in light of what we're seeing with the NBA, and we got to have 3 great players, the buying of players has never worked. Bowie Kuhn saved it back in the day, 48 years ago. And I think ultimately what we're seeing now is Phoenix can't win buying 3 players. We saw the Clippers can't win with buying 3 players. No one can.
No. Super team maybe isn't the way of the future anymore. Great stuff there, Michael, and great mustache on the graphic as well. Well done editing, folks. Okay, next on the Lombardi Line, the UFL has been a great testing ground for a handful of NFL rule changes and introducing new technology to the sport. What we like, what we don't like coming up. And if you were commissioner for a day, what would you want to do?
This is the Lombardi Line with former NFL executive Michael Lombardi. Now here is your host, Stormy Buonantony, on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Get ready, ladies and gentlemen. Next week, we here at VSiN are releasing our NFL betting guide, your ultimate resource for the football season, jam-packed with detailed team, division, and conference analysis, and of course, best bets from all of your favorite show hosts and experts for the upcoming NFL season. To get the guide, though, you got to be a VSiN Pro subscriber. And right now, you can sign up for a VSiN Pro annual subscription for just $199. That's down from the regular price of $240. Plus, we're throwing in an extra month absolutely free when you use our promo code Lombardi. With a VSiN Pro subscription, you'll get exclusive access to premium analysis, expert picks, and advanced betting tools that'll give you an upper hand all year long. Don't miss out on your chance, though. It's a limited time offer. Sign up and save ahead of the NFL season by visiting vsin.com/subscribe and using that promo code Lombardi to claim your discount and bonus month. vsin.com/subscribe, code Lombardi. Great stuff there. Still to come on the Lombardi Line as we welcome you back to the show alongside Michael Lombardi, Stormy Buonantony with you. In about 15 minutes, Texans reporter, longtime beat writer for all things Houston, John McClain, is going to join the program. At the end of the hour, we're also going to have a little bit of fun with our travel pet peeves. I just wrapped up my inaugural season of the UFL, spring football, and I was traveling every single week for 12 weeks, 2+ flights a week. I have a lot of grievances that I need to air, and Michael travels a ton as well, so we're going to have some fun with that. And speaking of the UFL, Michael, I thought an interesting conversation as producer Elliot and I were talking was all of the things that the UFL is trying to institute. Like, in addition to, of course, winning games and winning championships and getting players to the NFL, there's a lot that they're doing in terms of technology, in terms of testing out rules that are very interesting. And I wanted to get your perspective on a few that I do think were really great and really successful in the UFL. And if any of these things might be willing to have a look at the NFL level. I did think it was so interesting, by the way, that this past offseason already, the one thing that they did approve was the new kickoff rules that were previously in the XFL that this new version of spring football elected not to use. I'm curious how fans are going to react to the new look of that when the season starts.
Well, from talking to a bunch of people on the new rule and the kickoff rule, and I have talked to a lot of teams, there's two thoughts, right? The Chiefs, for example, they're going to use probably Justin Reed, their safety, because he can kick. They're going to use him to kick if they want the ball in play, because they feel like most special teams coaches feel like you need the 11th tackler, because it's going to be very difficult to get the right coverage in the right areas. If somebody gets out of their lane, which happens, all of a sudden it could get to the house. So I think there's going to be that, having somebody who can kick, and not all teams do. And then because the ball's only coming to the 30, not the 35, which we all thought, I think people are still going to bang it through the end zone and say, okay, have it on the 30. We'll give you 5 yards instead of trying to cover this, which could be difficult with a kicker that can't tackle. So it's going to be interesting. I think the preseason is going to be really enlightening on how teams approach it. You know, and most of the coaches who love special teams will try to get the ball in play. The ones that just want clean exchanges will kick it through the end zone.
So that's one rule that the NFL has already adapted and is testing out. There are some that will never happen, and rightfully so. The 1, 2, 3 point after attempt, right, where there's no kicking extra points. They're just runner pass plays. The 4th and 12, 4th and 15 conversion, I don't anticipate that happening, although a 4th and 20 has been proposed instead of an onside kick. But here are some things that I did really like, and even if not to the full extent that we see in the UFL, I think could be interesting in the NFL, starting with the transparency of officials. Now, in the UFL, we have microphones hot that we can pull up on television at the ready to hear officials as they are discussing certain calls. There are also body cameras that were put on the officials this year that had microphone ability and to be able to see from the angle that they're seeing. It's amazing to cut to Dan Blandino in the command center and hear real-time decisions as they're made and then get a follow-up explanation from him, which I'm sure that you're not going to be able to have the availability to do every game in the NFL. And again, if it's not to that extent, that's fine. But to be able to have the ability to record at least what's being said in these moments and share that with viewers, or at least a portion of it, I think would be awesome for NFL fans to hear instead of just sitting there at the TV saying, why is this call taking so long? You can hear it.
Look, I agree. I think anytime there's communication, the problem is I think the NFL doesn't want to peel back that layer.
Sure.
I think you'd have a hard time getting that passed. I think the thing is they like it. They don't want to have those conversations where people could misinterpret them, because at times we can, right?
Yep.
And I think ultimately it lends itself to being too close to home where thereafter you get exposed. I mean, you could see it. I mean, what happens with the officials when they know the call's going up to the booth? They hesitate to call. If you feel like you're being mic'd up, are you really going to be honest and say what you think? Probably not. So I think it's great for transparency. It may not be great for having a conflict or a discussion that requires two sides disagree. And then once that happens, then the media will just blow that up. Oh, this guy thought it was the right call, this guy didn't. I don't think they want to go down that road.
Well, something like maybe another angle is maybe instead of taking it live, you have similar to a mic'd up that we saw in the NBA where you hear the wired a little bit later for certain calls. And I don't know, maybe that's an option to kind of bring it in stages to an extent. And you just cut what you think is relevant and would make the most sense, and not to make anyone look bad, but to give a better explanation and clean things up could be valuable potentially. Let me hit a couple more of these ones. The fumble out of the end zone rule in the UFL is different. In the NFL, obviously, a fumble in the field of play, it ends up going out of the end zone, either along the side or the back. It's a turnover or a touchback for the defensive team. So the other team gets possession, not at the spot of the fumble, but at the 20-yard line, which is a rule I've never really understood or agreed with, especially in a league that's so geared toward offenses. It feels a little too punitive for that. It also does happen very rarely. I understand that since 2018 in the NFL, it's occurred just 8 total times in the regular season. But every time it happens, there's like collective outrage about it. And it's a big deal for a moment and the team is pissed off. And then it's like never to be heard of again. It's brought up in the meetings and nothing ever happens with it. Defense gets rewarded, in my opinion, for doing nothing. And I don't know. What do you think about that? So in the UFL, the offense retains the ball wherever the fumble occurred.
Yeah, I think that, to me, I don't like that rule either, because you fumbled it, and just because it goes through I think what'll happen is people will just try to kick it through the end zone to keep the ball.
Here's my thing is, like, anywhere else on the field that a fumble occurs, the defense has to jump on it to get possession. In this case, if you're diving for the goal line and it goes out at the 1, the other team gets the ball at the 20-yard line. I don't get that.
Well, let's play devil's advocate here. Okay, I'm jumping towards the end zone and I extend the ball out, right, to try to break the plane, and the ball, and you click it out. We've seen this happen numerous times. The ball gets clicked out, but it doesn't touch the line. Then you get rewarded by having it on the 1-inch line. Meanwhile, that's a stupid thing to do. Like, how do you get rewarded for that?
So maybe
I don't disagree with you that going through the end zone, I think, to me, and it does penalize the offense, gains a full advantage if they get the ball back. So everybody's going to just extend it. Josh Allen will score 87 touchdowns like that. Just hit the ball over, and if it goes out of the end zone, who cares? I'm going to get it back at the 1-inch line.
I think the issue with it is,
to me, you're right, though.
there's not a right answer yet. So maybe it's not spotting the ball at that position like the UFL does, but I think that there could be an alternate. And if we all got our heads together, we could think of a better way than where the defense gets the ball at the 20 and gets it. Like, I just think that it's a silly rule where it's at right now. And when it happens,
I think you're right. You put that the right way. There's not the right answer yet. No. I think that's the best way of saying it. I really do. I don't think we've come up with it because I think you don't want to penalize, you don't want to reward or penalize as much as we have.
Since we've only got 2 minutes left in this segment, I'm going to cruise through these last couple. Sideline video, I didn't realize how few people didn't know that in the NFL, it's pictures that you're seeing on those Surface Pros. It's not video. And a lot of coaches were very anti the idea of, like, this will eliminate competitive advantage. It takes away from coaching skills. So the proposal hasn't been brought up even since 2018. But in the UFL, everyone that I have talked to absolutely loves it. They love the access and time for real-time adjustments. Both teams get access to the same footage. Also, intentional pass interference. So if there is an egregious and intentional foul on PI, which, yes, I know at times it can be difficult to officiate intent, but we do it with targeting. We do it in basketball with a flagrant 1 versus a flagrant 2, right? The ball will get spotted at the place of a foul. If it is unintentional, it's a 15-yard penalty. So kind of combining the NFL and college football rule, which I like there, separating the two so that you don't have a guy pulling down a receiver, or conversely, you don't have a quarterback that's trying to just chuck it downfield and get a call. And then the ball spouting technology, which is going to be introduced and tested in the NFL this preseason. It's such a simple and obvious change. No need to trot out the chain gang. Still, the problem is going to be where the ball is spotted. And I think that's something that not a lot of people realize, that this is, once the ball is spotted, there is technology that tells you how close it is to the first down marker. It does not tell you if the official has put it in the right spot. And that's something that I think from a technology standpoint still needs to be developed. I have like 20 other things that I could bring up, but we do have a guest coming up next. Get ready.
I love him.
John McClain will join us. We'll get into all things Houston Texans after a quick timeout.
This is the Lombardi Line with former NFL executive Michael Lombardi. Now here is your host, Stormy Buonantony, on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
If you're watching and listening to VSiN, don't forget about all the great betting tools and content at VSiN.com. We've got best bets from hosts and guests, betting splits, pro tips, trends, and of course, best practices. Right now on the homepage, will the Florida Panthers secure their first title in franchise history? Our resident NHL expert, Johnny Lazarus, has a full Game 5 breakdown for tonight's Stanley Cup final, thoughts on the side and total, and approach to the prop market. All up now at VSiN.com. So welcome you back to VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, alongside Michael Lombardi, Stormy Buonantony with you. Get back into a little NFL talk. The Houston Texans went from worst to first in the AFC South this past season, and with success comes expectation. So to help us break it all down, we welcome in Texans writer John McClain on the Progressive guest line. Been covering the NFL in Houston 48 years, knows Houston sports inside and out. Welcome in, John. How are we doing today?
Stormy, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to join us. We appreciate it. And I'm curious your thoughts on how this Houston team can continue to take positive steps off what was a remarkable rookie season for C.J. Stroud last year.
It's going to be really difficult because last year they played a fourth-place schedule. Their crossover game was Arizona here, of which they won. And this year they play a first-place schedule, 5 division champions, 11 games against teams that had winning records. And the quarterbacks they play, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love, Josh Allen, Tua Tagovailoa, Trevor Lawrence, Caleb Williams, and they might get Jaden Daniels and Drake May. So they play a murderer's row of quarterbacks. And after they stomped Cleveland in the wild card round, they were tied with Baltimore at halftime, the divisional round. And then they crushed the Texans running the ball. So they know they have to improve against the run, even though last year they went from 32nd to 6th against the run. That's one reason they signed 14 defensive free agents, drafted 5 defensive players, and re-signed 4 of their defensive free agents.
They have been very active, John. There's no question. And I think you hit the nail on the head. So as we look at this team moving forward, who do you think will make the guys that they've signed, who will make the most impact?
Well, most people would say Stephon Diggs. I say Danielle Hunter. Because right now, they signed Danielle Hunter, who had 16.5 sacks, who led the NFL in tackles for loss, playing opposite of Will Anderson Jr., the Defensive Rookie of the Year. And then they signed Danico Autry. Since Autry turned 30, he's had 9 sacks in each of those 4 seasons. Last year, he set his career high with 11. So with Hunter playing next to Autry, with Anderson on the other side, I don't think Danielle Hunter is going to face a lot of double teams. I don't think now Stephon Diggs isn't either, as long as Nico Collins and Tank Dell stay healthy. But I would say Hunter first and Diggs second. The thing about Diggs, he might have the most catches. I'd be shocked if he extends his 100-catch season to 5. Nico Collins have the most yards, and Tank Dell have the highest average per catch. But they've got high expectations for Diggs, whom they traded for, and Hunter, who they signed for 2 years, $49 million.
The more you keep saying those names, the more stacked it reminds us that wide receiver room is for Houston this year. And a great quarterback that's throwing them the ball as well in C.J. Stroud. Did you expect to any extent what we ultimately got from Stroud last year? I mean, just offensive rookie of the year, and every step of the way was breaking records.
Stormy, if anybody tells you they expected that, they're lying through their teeth. Nobody expected a rookie quarterback, C.J. Stroud, to do that. We didn't see anything in off-season program, OTAs, didn't see it in preseason, didn't see it in camp. D'Amico Ryans didn't name him starter, even though we all said he was going to be in the media, until the week before the season starts. And I compare that right now the way Caleb Williams is being promoted for the Bears. And really, the first game, they got beat at Baltimore, and I didn't think much. Second game, they got beat at home, and even though he threw for 180 yards in the fourth quarter, a lot of that was mop-up yards based on the coverage. But when they went to Jacksonville, 0-2 and won by 20 and came back home and beat Pittsburgh worse than any Houston team has beaten the Steelers since the Oilers in 1991. I started to think he's got a chance to be special, but no way did anybody see the accuracy, the down-the-field accuracy, the cool calmness under pressure, and the way he brought that team from behind. They won like 7 games in the last 36 seconds in overtime.
Yeah, they were remarkable, and he did a great job. John, so you're around the team all the time. You're around Nick. Who do they think is the main competitor in the South to them? Which team?
Well, I think they would say Indianapolis. They had to beat Indianapolis last year to get in the playoffs. Colts came so close to winning that last game, and they would have been in. Now, the way people are talking about the Texans this year, they were talking about the Jaguars last year. Jaguars had beaten Chargers in the playoffs with that great comeback. Trevor Lawrence was going to be a generational quarterback. I know I lost a $100 bet on the air here when I had a choice of taking the Jaguars to the field. And I took the Jaguars without hesitation. And if somebody had said, well, what are the odds the Texans are going to finish first, I would have said, whatever they are, I'll take them that they're not. So you know how that is, Mike. It happens every year. We have worst to first. That means it'd be the Titans. Rand Carthon's made a lot of changes. He had a lot of money to spend, and retired Bill Callahan to help his son, Brian, in his first year as a head coach. And could they go from worst to first? It depends on Will Levis. And the Texans couldn't have done it without Stroud. And he knows, and offensive coordinator, play caller Bobby Slowick knows, that every defensive coordinator has been watching the tape, seeing what he did well, and what can we do differently this season. Stroud and Slowick have to evolve accordingly.
That's a great point. John McClain, Houston Texans writer, joining us here on the Progressive Guest Line. And so you talked about the perception of C.J. Stroud starting to shift from last offseason as the season started to go on. Now there's another shift where he's being talked about as one of the shortest shots to win MVP. And he, too, is talking a lot about himself and about other quarterbacks, MVP-type players in the National Football League. What have you made about some of Stroud's social media and YouTube appearances, the interviews that he has done? Do you like the confidence, or do you wish maybe he'd just take a step back and continue to watch and learn?
Well, the Texans, D'Amico Ryans and Nick Caserio, probably wish that he would take a step back, watch and learn. But it is the sign of the times with young athletes today, young people in general. Now, he and Micah Parsons have become best friends. They went to China. They played celebrity basketball, celebrity baseball. You talk about trash talkers. Those two are best trash-talking best friends. Can't wait till they play in Arlington. But Zaire Franklin took a couple of shots at him, and then he brought up Aaron Rodgers out of nowhere, saying that Matthew Stafford would have won multiple Super Bowls if he'd been with the Packers. And I'm like, I wish he was that good when he's talking to us. Maybe we're asking the wrong questions, but I've been surprised at how outward he's been. But I don't think anybody holds it against him because he's such a good kid. We voted him here the Good Guy Award locally, the Pro Football Writers of America, and then he won it nationally, and I've never seen a rookie do that. I voted for Brandon Graham, a 15-year veteran, but he is very cooperative, and he tries hard to be informative and analytical, but we never heard a peep controversial about him as a rookie.
It's amazing. John, real quick, we're going to have to go here, but running back situation, does Mixon look like he's the real deal? And what the hell ever happened with Dameon Pierce?
Dameon Pierce does not fit the zone scheme that Bobby Slowick put in. He's a straighter head, run over him. He's got to learn to be disciplined. Maybe he will. Mixon, one of the interesting things, he's only missed 3 games the last 4 years, and he hasn't fumbled since 2021. He had 1,400 yards last year, and one reason they like him, they can't score inside the 5 running the football last year, and he's averaged 12.3 touchdowns over the last 4 years.
John, keep up the excellent work.
John.
Thank you so much.
You are amazing.
Stormy
Thank
and
you,
Mike,
sir.
thank you guys very much for having me.
That's John McClain. Follow him on X at McClain_on_John. Great stuff there from him on all things Houston and the division perspective as well. I am not of the belief that Will Levis can lead the Titans from worst to first, but crazier things have happened, Michael.
Yes, crazier things have happened. I'm not with you on that one either. You're not getting me down there. You're not even getting pizza money on that one for me. I'm going to have to be proven to me during the season. Yeah. I'm not wasting good pizza money. No chance.
That was great stuff. And I can totally relate to that. I guess we're not asking the right questions at some of these media availabilities because I've been there. I ask a question. I'm like, why'd you give that guy such a great answer? I thought that I crafted that question beautifully. Yeah. All right. We're going to hit the break, wrapping things up on the other side. Final thoughts on the Stanley Cup Final Game 5 tonight and the top 5 worst types of people at the airport.
This is the Lombardi Line with former NFL executive Michael Lombardi. Now here is your host, Stormy Buonantony, on VSiN, the sports betting network.
After an ugly Game 4 loss, the Boston Celtics bounced back in Game 5 to win their 18th NBA title as a franchise. Can the Florida Panthers do the same tonight to win their first? We shall see. Going to wrap things up here on the Lombardi Line with our pro tip, like we always do, Michael, and want to talk about Florida with the opportunity to bounce back. I think that there's a lot of parallels between what we saw in the NBA Finals and what I anticipate us seeing tonight in the NHL Stanley Cup Final. The Panthers are 3-0, outscoring opponents 15-4 in each game following a performance in which their goaltender, Sergei Bobrovsky, has allowed 4 or more goals. Just keep that in mind. We laid out each and every one of those games earlier in the show if you want to go back and listen to that whole thing. But I do think that it is noteworthy. I really like the Florida Panthers to bounce back today. They're minus 140-ish on the money line today, around plus 115 to win in regulation on that 60-minute line. Go Panthers tonight, Michael. We'll see if we can go back-to-back days.
Go. Yeah, that bank account's growing. I love it. Getting ready for football. That's all. You just collecting just keep getting the wealth in there. Get ready for your pizza money for football. I love it.
That's exactly what we're doing. We build it up. VSiN Pro Tips, again, available at VSiN.com. You can search our pro tips by sport and by show each and every day here at VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. But it's been a good week for the Lombardi Line because Matt Youmans gave us the U.S. Open winner in Bryson DeChambeau. We had the UFL championship. I was telling everybody the Birmingham Stallions are going to win a third straight spring football title. They do. We had the NBA closed out. Now we just need the hockey. So we'll see. But speaking of the UFL, so earlier this hour, we were talking about some of the rule changes or things that have been instituted in the UFL that maybe we could see or would like to see in the NFL. I never got to ask you during that segment, if you were commissioner for a day in the NFL, what is one thing that you would like to change?
I would change the pass interference rule. I think it's too egregious. I think if there is, I love what you had in the UFL, where if it is clearly if a guy's tackling the guy because he doesn't want to give up a touchdown, almost like a clear path foul in basketball, right? Okay, got that. But if it's a nitpick call, which we see oftentimes, it shouldn't be spot foul. It should be 10 yards, period, end of story, right? Because I think some of them are wrong. I think you could flip the game or have the Femi 4-box in your house on YouTube, and you could see one calls go one way and one calls go the other way. And so there's no consistency. And when there's no consistency with the calls, then I think you have to kind of lower the standard of what the penalty is. I think that's the bigger issue, because sometimes teams get bailed out, throw the ball up the field. There comes the flag from the back judge, or the side judge throws it, and all of a sudden, we got a big play. I think that needs to be changed. I like that. That's what I would do first. Second thing I would do is make sure Scott Novak wasn't at all the games. That's the other thing I would do, but that's a whole other story.
Well played, good sir. I love that. I agree. I think that the PI penalty, intentional versus not, the spot foul versus 10 or 15 yards, I think that's great. Another one that I considered throwing in when we were talking about it earlier is in the UFL, there's a super challenge where you can challenge anything one time. But the thing so what I like about it is that it can be anything. So even if it's a play that's typically not able to be reviewed, you can challenge it if you are very specific about what it is. Like you can't just.
If the whistle blows, can you challenge it? If the whistle blows, can they still challenge it? Because you know how we sometimes you can't challenge it. We stopped we blew the whistle. How do they handle that there?
That's one I don't know for sure. But I know that in terms of like if there's just a hold, you can't say there was holding on that play. You have to say number 18 held XYZ. Like you have to be very specific about it. The thing that I don't like about it is that you can only use it once, whether you're right or wrong. So you don't get. Like if you're right on the challenge, you keep your timeout and you get the play. Yes, but if you lose it, you lose the timeout as well. But it's a bummer that it's a one and done. I feel like if you get it right, you should have the opportunity for another challenge later in the game, but you don't. Okay, but let's move on. These last few minutes of the show, I want to close out doing something fun. Speaking of UFL, I mentioned it earlier. During this UFL season, as I was traveling with ESPN, I'm taking 2+ flights every single week, and it's not that it's anything new, but you're just reminded constantly about how as soon as people step foot into an airport, they change. I don't know why. I don't know what it is about stepping into that building, but we go from humans to animals, and I can't take it. And so Michael and I have put together our list, because we are both travelers, of our travel pet peeves. And so I'll share my list, and then you can do yours. These are my top 5 worst people that you can find at the airport, and I have a couple honorable mentions as well. Starting with just just like poor seat etiquette people. Why is your bare foot touching my elbow when I am sitting in front of you? I have had, thank goodness it was cold coffee and not hot coffee. I have had a seat, the person in front of me reclined their seat so violently that my coffee splashed in my lap and I'm sitting there for 3 hours. Then also while we're on food, like, why are we bringing tuna or some like disgusting smelling God knows what on a plane when you know that you're in close confines? I don't understand it. Okay, so that's one I don't like. I don't like the person who feels like they need to be first in line and first off the plane. Like, you are in Group 8, why are you standing in front of here? There's a zillion people that need to board in front of you. This is not Best Buy on Black Friday. Make some room for the people that are actually supposed to be on the plane at this point. And if you're in row 32 on the plane, I understand if you want to stand up and stretch your legs, but we don't need to be like trying to race to get off the plane. You're still in row 32. You're not going to get off any faster. Just relax. I also do not vibe with no headphones guy. There is a special place in hell for somebody who is listening to their FaceTime or playing their video game on full blast at the gate or on the airplane when everybody else is just trying to have a peaceful travel day. I do not like is I didn't realize how long this list was going to feel. I don't like, and I don't approve of this. I don't understand why this is a thing, Michael.
Keep going, girl. Keep going.
But when people are on the moving sidewalk and just stand themselves right in the middle. There are people coming behind them. They do not move. They do not care that anyone is coming up behind them. They refuse to move to the side. I don't get it. And then the people that are surprised by security. Like, did you not think you needed your boarding pass? Were you not aware that you need your ID to get onto a plane? Did you miss the 20 signs and security guards telling you to empty your water bottle? It's mind-boggling to me. Like, these are common things. I didn't realize that every time I went to an airport, I was going to be surrounded by people. It was their first time flying. And then my honorable mentions that I have here are people who need you to trade seats. Like, I'm sorry, if you did not book your flight in time or you wanted a cheaper seat and you have a middle seat and you're trying to trade me with my aisle or window so you can sit next to your husband, like, you picked the wrong girl. It's not going to happen. Like, there are certain situations where I'm willing to trade you. Like with anything, there's different circumstances. If it's a little kid or anything like that, absolutely, I'm happy to. But hell no, sir. Like, just because you're trying to be cheap does not mean that you're going to swindle me out of my seat that I bought 2 months ago. And just don't be rude to flight attendants. Don't be rude to the gate agents. Like, you're screaming at them. It's not their fault that you were late to the flight. It's not their fault that something didn't work out. So just comment, simmer down. All right, Michael, your turn.
I love them all. Don't be rude. Well, to me, my biggest one is once, before we get on the plane, everybody is circled around the entrance gate.
Yeah, makes no sense.
Somebody in Group 7 is standing right there at Group 1 wanting to get on. Okay, I get that. We're all anxious to get on the plane. I understand. But what drives me crazy is the lack of urgency when we get to where we want to go. Like, you would think there would be a mad dash to get off the plane. Instead, everybody's lollygagging. Oh, my God. I didn't know we were here. Oh, I got to get up now. Oh, my gosh. And I completely agree with the decorum on row 14 goes before row 15. I don't want to jump in front of anybody. I'm not trying to be the first guy off the plane. But can we get a little urgency in this damn thing? Can we move? We're here. We're where we want to be, right? Oh. The other thing that drives me crazy is help the little old lady put her bag on top.
Yes.
How hard is it, right? Like, seriously, how can't we just help somebody? The other one that drives me crazy, if you're in a window seat and the guy's in the aisle seat, don't put your seatbelt on yet. Somebody's going to – don't get mad at me that I got to climb over you. I was coming all along. We're not going to go and then you're not going to – you don't need your seatbelt while we're not moving. Just relax. Just everybody calm down, right? I think the gate agents should do a better job of communicating. And look, here's my rule. If they're handing out nuts or cookies, just take them. Somebody's going to eat them. Don't give them back. Be nice to the person sitting next to you. Offer them to anybody around. Somebody's going to eat them all, and especially on the flights with the biscottis. Everybody loves the Delta biscottis, so just grab them and go. Or the American has them too. Just take them. Why be a jerk? But that drives me crazy. We get somewhere, Stormy, and everybody goes slow.
Yeah.
That's my pet peeve, but I love yours too. I agree with every one of yours.
You know what, Michael? And it's not just in that moment. I feel like in general, if we're able-bodied, let's pick up the pace a little bit. Let's walk with a purpose. I don't understand. I don't understand like why we're walking and then, in an open area and then people just suddenly stop. They look around. They don't care. No awareness of their surroundings. It's fine. Yeah. This was so fun, Michael. You're the best.
I got a bag up there? I got to get a bag.
Oh, I had
Thanks,
no
Stormy.
idea.
See you tomorrow.
I need my ID for security. Who'd have thought?
DraftKings, giving a bonus bet back if I lose so I don't have to sweat my bet. NBA